They said the video would ruin me, but it did the opposite. When the court read the charges, I didn't shout. I just straightened my church suit and smiled. Every lie they told became evidence. Every secret they buried came up clean in daylight. And believe me, this story's just getting started. The air was sharp enough to sting, even under the heated tent. I could see my breath mix with the chatter of people who'd never had to check a gas bill in February. The Vance family knew how to host an event. White lights reflecting on the frozen surface of Lake Waconia, laughter echoing through the cold like it belonged there. I slipped a hand into my coat pocket, feeling the warmth of the little heating packet I'd brought myself. Always be prepared, that's what age teaches you. The volunteer at check-in gave me the kind of smile that meant trouble. "Name again, ma'am?" she asked, eyes flicking down her list like it was gospel. "Ellington," I said, calm but firm. "Marva Ellington." She hesitated, whispered something to another worker, and finally pointed toward a table near the catering trays. "We're a little full in the main section tonight." Bless her heart. I'd been in that corner before, in church halls, school banquets, even family weddings, where they seat you far enough away to forget you belong. I could see Callista Vance working the crowd, every movement a performance, perfect smile, perfect posture. Arthur stood beside her, the kind of man who carried authority like a second coat. My son, Deshaun, was nearby, caught between the two, his boss's expectations and his mother's watchful eyes. He looked good in that suit, but the tension around his jaw told a story no one else noticed. A photographer called out, "Let's get the family." I stepped forward, but Callista's manicured hand brushed my arm with a polished laugh. "Oh, just the Vances for this one." "Sweetie, we'll do one big group shot later." Her voice sugar, her intent steel. The volunteer next to her murmured, "We're tight on space, ma'am," as if that explained erasing a mother from a frame. So I smiled. I'd learned long ago how to hide a wound behind manners. I stepped aside, feeling the sting of being seen yet unseen. My eyes drifted to the safety rope coiled near the dock, untouched all evening. Funny how people trust appearances until the ice gives way. "Hey, Mom," Deshaun said quietly, sliding by with a glass of champagne he didn't drink. "You good?" His voice cracked around the word. "I'm fine, baby," I said, steady. "Don't worry about me." But I did. I always did. When Callista called for a fun reel by the lake, I felt my stomach tighten. "It's just for fun," she sang, waving her phone like a director. The crowd followed, half tipsy, all careless. I stayed back, watching her heels sink slightly into the crusted snow. "Be careful by the reeds," I said, loud enough for her to hear. She glanced at me over her shoulder, lips curling. "It's solid, Marva, relax." They gathered near the dock, laughing into their phones. Someone shouted, "Do it for the algorithm." Another said, "Come on, coach," mocking Deshaun's old football days. He tried to laugh it off, but I saw his balance shift as Callista nudged him playfully toward the edge. It happened fast, too fast for anyone to react the way they should. A sharp crack split the air like a gunshot. Deshaun's boots slid. His head hit the dock with a sound I'll never forget. And then silence, broken only by the rush of water closing over him. For a moment, they thought it was part of the joke. Phones stayed up, filming. Someone giggled nervously. I dropped to my knees before the laughter faded. "Deshaun!" My voice carried across the ice, sharp as the wind. No answer. Just ripples and bubbles. I grabbed the safety rope, praying it would reach, my hands shaking more from fear than cold. The crowd stood still, unsure. "He's fine," someone said. "He's a strong swimmer." I ignored them. I threw the rope again, missed, Again, the fibers burned my palms. My knees bit into the frozen dock as I crawled closer, spreading my weight like I'd seen on TV once. Follow my voice, baby. You hear me? Come to Mama. Nothing. Just the low hum of the music and the distant sound of sirens growing closer. I felt eyes on me, Callista's, her camera still rolling, her face unreadable. I locked eyes with her, and something inside me froze harder than that lake. I whispered, steady but full of fire. If that ice takes him, I'll make the world answer. And then, from deep beneath the surface, came a sound like the earth itself exhaling. A crack that crawled across the ice and into my bones, the same sound I'd heard once before, standing at my husband's funeral. The siren grew louder. The laughter did not stop. The siren grew louder, while the laughter still lingered like smoke over the frozen lake. I stayed low, my coat soaking through with meltwater, every nerve locked on the sound beneath the ice. Find my voice, baby, I said again, breath fogging. The rope burned through my gloves, my knuckles stiff as stone. A young man slid me a boat hook, eyes wide. Take it, ma'am, he whispered. I nodded. No words wasted. The water moved, then his sleeve, limp, dark. I hooked it, pulled with every bit of strength the Lord gave me. Come on, boy, I murmured. We rolled him up onto the dock. His body was heavy, slick, unresponsive. Someone helped brace my boots. Pulse? They asked. Faint, I said, pressing 2 fingers to his neck. He gasped, coughed lake water, a sound both ugly and holy. I turned his head, the way I was taught at church CPR class. My scarf pressed against the gash on his head. Blood bloomed through it like ink. Stay with me, I whispered. Someone yelled about 911 being on the way. I said, good. Keep the path clear. One woman pointed her phone at me. I met her eyes until she lowered it. When the EMTs arrived, the crowd finally moved back, quiet as a scolded choir. They fired questions like bullets, time underwater, temperature, impact point, and I answered each one clean. I'm his mother. I told them when they asked for next of kin. They stopped asking anything else after that. Callista hovered near the tent flap, saying, it was all in good fun. I didn't answer. I just pointed to the broken dock where his blood mixed with frost. They lifted him into the ambulance. I climbed up front without being told. She's oriented, one EMT said. I watched through the back window, those phones still raised, screens bright against the night. Proof. If you knew how to use it later. The ride was a blur of noise and cold air. Lord, give me steady hands, I whispered as I checked my purse. Phone charged, ID card, notebook. I texted Lamont one line, emergency, stand by. No extra words. The EMT beside me gave updates in numbers. GCS, oxygen, temperature drop. I repeated each term under my breath to keep my head clear. You'll make it, son, I said softly. Mama's right here. At Hennepin's ER bay, the heat slapped my face. Nurses swarmed. I gave quick answers, name, age, injury, time in water. A hospital rep appeared too fast, eyes darting toward the Vances who had somehow arrived before us. Callista was on her phone. Voice syrupy. Yes, Kepler, we're handling it. I caught that name. Arthur stood behind her, silent, scanning for cameras. I'm his mother, I told the nurse again. When she called me extended family, my tone ended the conversation. In the waiting bay, a young man replayed a video, laughing voices over my son's fall. Delete it, I said, low. He hesitated. Or forward it to me. Your choice. He sent it trembling. Ma'am, I didn't mean... Meaning comes later, I said. Callista passed by with a bouquet already ordered, saying, "We all panicked." I opened my notebook and wrote, "Fun for the camera. Names. Times. Faces." Then I stepped aside, dialed Lamont. He answered on the second ring. "You all right?" he asked. "No," I said. "They pushed him. I want truth to stand taller than their lies." A pause. Then his voice hardened. "Say the word." I did. "Do what you have to do." He spoke in steps. Secure footage, request lake patrol logs, preserve evidence. I memorized each one. "We don't make promises we can't keep," I said. "And we don't make noise we can't prove," he finished. Callista tried again, voice dripping sweet. "He's dramatic when he drinks. You know." I turned to her, calm. "My son's blood isn't your small talk," Arthur finally muttered. "Let's not escalate." I looked at his dry shoes. Too late for that. The ER doors swung open. My boy rolled past on a stretcher, face pale, breath steady through a mask. Behind him came a delivery, white lilies, thick and heavy, addressed from Callista Vance. I didn't touch them. I only memorized the timestamp. The overhead speaker blared a code, not his, but the sound cracked through me. I took a breath and whispered. The lake said his name. Now the city's going to hear me say yours. When the doors swallowed my boy, I dialed the one person who doesn't blink at power and asked for war by another name. Hospitals aren't quiet at night. The lights hum, the coffee burns, and every clock ticks louder than your heartbeat. I settled into a vinyl chair that squeaked when I moved, and I told myself to sit still. Nurses drifted through the corridor like a hymn, steady hands, low voices, no wasted motion. I learned their names by rhythm. Donna on triage, Myra on meds, Carol on CT. I didn't ask twice. I kept my phone face down, but the Notes app open. Timestamps, names, details that would matter later. People think grieving mothers fall apart. I don't. I catalog. Security hovered near the end of the hall, watching us. I nodded first, that quiet exchange that says, I know how to behave. Respect buys you safety in public spaces. Callista's crowd huddled by the vending machines, too loud for the hour. I noted the bouquet timestamp, the delivery ID, the intake nurse's name. Every piece of noise would turn into order if I kept my head clear. My mother used to say, "Don't shout where a signature will do." I promised myself. No speeches tonight, only steps. A young administrator with a plastic smile floated in. Clipboard pearls. Too much perfume for 2 a.m. "We're making space for family," she said, glancing at the Vance group. I replied, "I'm next of kin, and I'll stay." Her smile thinned. "Extended family can wait downstairs." I looked her dead in the eye. "Mother," I said, one word, steady as a gavel. That ended that. She retreated, muttering policy to save face. Across the hall, Callista's voice carried. Bluetooth bright. "Chief Kepler, we just need this contained." Contained. Like truth was a spill they could mop up. I pulled out my notebook, not for feelings, for evidence. Columns for time, badge, action. I logged the bouquet's delivery ID, then called the desk to note a lily allergy in my son's chart. "Allergic," I said. The flowers vanished within minutes, a small win, but it proved the system worked if you spoke its language. I requested the patient advocate, recorded who entered Deshawn's room, and sent voice memos to myself describing tones and looks. A young tech whispered, "You okay, ma'am?" I smiled, tired. "We're going to be..." It sounded like a prayer and a threat combined. When the resident came out, she explained, concussion, mild hypothermia, overnight observation, I repeated each phrase back, word for word. Accuracy is respect in a hospital. Callista tried to slide in behind her, pretending concern. I blocked the door with my elbow and said, "Patient privacy." The nurse backed me up. Arthur's phone buzzed. "Optics," he muttered twice. I added that word to my list. Optics mean nothing to a mother watching monitors blink over her son's chest. I touched his hand, warm again. "You rest," I said. "I'm working." Lamont arrived an hour later. No announcement. Wool coat, legal pad, tired eyes that still saw everything. We hugged once, short, businesslike. He opened his notepad. Who spoke? Who filmed? Who paid for the florist? I handed him my notes. "Start there." He nodded. "We don't make promises we can't keep. Marva. And no noise we can't prove." I said, "That's why I called you." He asked for the bouquet card. I photographed it front and back. Chain of custody isn't just for police, it's for people who refuse to be erased. We sat in the cafeteria, two tired soldiers with bad coffee. He sketched the lake layout from my description, the weak ice, the dock lights, the reeds. I listed donor names from the gala badges. He circled 2. "They'll fold first," he said. We drafted my morning calls. Short, factual, polite. Midwestern code for "I'm holding the line." He prepped subpoenas we might never need. I prepped patience. Before he left, we prayed, not for revenge, for clarity. When I returned upstairs, Callista tried to reopen her misunderstanding script. "He'd been drinking," she said softly. I let the silence sit between us until she looked away. "My son's blood alcohol isn't your headline," I told her. "Arthur finally met my eyes and blinked first. I filed that away too." Then the night shifted. A young man from the gala approached, trembling. I have a video," he said. "Didn't feel right keeping it." I thanked him, wrote his name phonetically. Small truth, big courage, the kind that cracks walls. My phone buzzed. A message from Lamont. 2 names. 1 phone call and a camera no one remembered. I stared at the ICU door, feeling the air hum with purpose. "All right then," I whispered. The lilies were gone, the laughter fading. Dawn wasn't here yet, but I was done waiting. Justice had a wake-up call, and I planned to answer it first. Morning light crawled across the hospital windows, pale and cold. I'd been up all night, but my mind was sharper than caffeine. I opened my notebook, double-checked every timestamp, and screenshotted messages before anyone could update them. Facts before feelings. That's how I was raised. Lamont slid me a slip of paper, a short script for morning calls. Polite, factual. "For your awareness," it said at the top. "Midwest politeness is the sharpest knife when you use it right." I sent 3 texts to Deshawn's friend, to the patient advocate, to a nurse whose shift just changed. Each reply came quick, tight with worry. "Hang in there, Miss E." I didn't hang, I anchored. I took photos of my bruised knees from the dock, each frame tagged with time. Proof starts small, like frost before a freeze. My lips whispered the line Lamont always says, "No noise we can't prove." It steadied my hands better than any prayer. At 7:12, my phone buzzed. "Talk to me like a lawyer. Ms. Mielington," said Vera Ocampo's voice. Cool, brisk, exactly what I needed. I laid out the facts, minute by minute, like evidence on a courtroom table. She asked for the clip with the laughter, so I sent both versions, one raw, one labeled. Her silence told me she'd seen worse, and that this time, it would matter. She flagged a dock camera I hadn't known about and told me how to request it under public record law. "We'll keep it clean," she said. "Dignity first," I promised. I returned to the corridor, met a new administrator with soft eyes and hard rules. "Family only, ma'am." I pointed to my badge. "Mother, you can check." She hesitated, then waved me through. Callista appeared next, all pressed cashmere and concern for the cameras. "We're just trying to help," she cooed. I focused on the nurse's name tag instead. Arthur loomed behind her, muttering optics like a broken prayer. I asked security to preserve footage from 6:45 to 7:30. Exact times, I said, because precision scares people who live by spin. By 8. Lamont and I called the non-emergency line. "This isn't panic," I told the dispatcher. "It's procedure." We filed an incident report, date, location, witness list, and got a reference number I wrote twice, once on paper, once in my phone. Vera emailed a checklist. We ticked boxes. Evidence stored. A nurse wrote a short letter confirming Deshawn's condition. "For employment," I told her. "Paper has more power than outrage ever will." Then came the PR team. A woman in a navy suit smiled like we were partners. "We'd love a statement, Miss Ellington, something unifying." I asked for their recording policy in writing. That took the smile off. Callista slid an NDA folder across the table. I read the first line, closed it, and said, "No." Arthur leaned forward. "We've supported this hospital for years," I answered. "Then you'll know how paperwork works." The nurse beside me suppressed a grin. Lamont whispered, "That's how you checkmate with manners." They pushed. I didn't flinch. I said the sentence that turned the air cold. "No one buys my son's breath back." The room fell silent except for the monitor beeped down the hall. Lamont noted their titles. Calm as a man writing grocery lists. A small mercy followed. The resident let me in for 2 minutes. Deshawn looked fragile but steady, skin warmer, eyes fluttering behind lids. I smoothed his blanket edge, whispered, "You rest. I'm working." I left a sticky note for the nurse with my number, gratitude written like strategy. Before leaving, I asked if someone could check on the crying woman in the waiting area. Care isn't weakness, it's discipline. Outside, the air bit like truth. 2 news vans idled near the curb, exhaust curling into the pale morning. My phone pinged, Vera again. A still image, Callista's gloved hand, Deshawn's heel slipping, the timestamp bright as sunrise. I stood in the cold and breathed deep. Inside my coat pocket, the patient advocate's card felt warm, like armor. Lamont joined me, eyes hard but proud. "They're coming for you now, Marva," I said. "Good, let them." The bakery down the block opened its door, letting out the smell of sugar and bread. For a second, I remembered Deshawn as a boy, powdered sugar on his cheeks. I squared my shoulders. "By noon," I said quietly. "The city's going to watch the water." The clock on the wall ticked toward noon, steady as my breath. I checked with the charge nurse. Deshawn was stable, vitals holding, pain under control. That was my single pocket of softness in a day made of edges. Lamont spread his notes across the consult table. Columns, names, timestamps, every line neat as courtroom script. We synchronized watches. Noon meant truth, not drama. I memorized 2 lines for the press. Factual, calm, no adjectives. "We'll let the paper speak." That was my anchor. I texted Deshawn's pastor, told him, "Pray steady, not loud." At 11:58, Vera's message buzzed. "It's live." I opened the link. 30 seconds of doc cam. No sound, no names, just a heel slipping, a hand reaching, and a fall that froze the air. The caption read, Authorities reviewing incident reported at Lake Waconia. That line hit harder than any headline. My phone began to hum with messages. One read, "I saw it. I can help." I added witness number 3 to my notebook. Black ink neat as proof. Down the hall, Callista's crew went quiet. Arthur's voice turned low. Urgent. Like a man realizing control was slipping through silk gloves. Lamont nodded once. Phase 1 complete. Outside, 2 reporters waited by the bench near the ashtray. I walked out slow, not hiding, just choosing ground. A young woman with wind in her hair asked if I'd speak. "I'm Deshawn's mother," I said. "We filed. We'll follow through." She asked if it was party fun gone wrong. I answered, "Words matter. This was harm." I spelled my name carefully so they'd print it right. You don't let anyone misspell your story. When she asked if I blamed anyone, I said, "I trust what the lake remembered and what the camera saw." That was enough. By 1 o'clock, the blowback began. Hospital PR sent a media guidance. I filed it, unsigned. Lamont got a cease and desist from some donor lawyer using words like reputational harm. Arthur paced, saying stewardship as if it was a spell. Callista appeared again, face rehearsed for pity. "This confusion online, it hurts everyone," I replied. "Then clear it with the truth." Security hovered, unsure who to escort. "Protect the patient," I said. "Protect the hall." My hands didn't shake. Anger has its uses if you keep it organized. Lamont forwarded the donor letter to compliance, copying everyone with power and no excuses. I filed my own request that any donation-linked interference be added to the chart. Paper trails outlast arrogance. Within minutes, compliance confirmed receipt. All patient access rights remain intact. That single line made Arthur pale. Vera texted, "Doc cam preserved in city record." I whispered, "Good." A nurse stopped me in the hall. "Thank you for putting things in writing," she said. "Saves us all later." I smiled. "That's why we do it clean." Then came the smear. A post claiming Deshawn was drunk and slipped. We screenshotted, archived, traced the handle to their circle. I didn't chase it. I fed it to Vera and Lamont. Callista leaned toward a volunteer, whispering privacy. I told the girl kindly, "Take your break, sweetheart." A cousin of theirs messaged me to show grace. I sent back the incident number. Dignity doesn't mean silence. Deshawn slept through it all, machine steady, heartbeat like a promise. I asked for a fresh copy of the visitor log, left a peppermint for the clerk. Small courtesies build armor faster than noise. The social worker checked on the crying woman. That eased something in me. Lamont drafted witness templates, plain language, no fear. "People tell the truth easier when they understand the form," he said. I nodded. In the restroom mirror, I retied my scarf, smoothing the edge. Mama used to say, "Keep your hand steady when the world shakes." A text flashed on my screen. "You don't know me. I work for Kepler. We need to talk." Lamont read over my shoulder, voice low. "We move careful," I typed back. In daylight, public. The elevator chimed. I slipped my phone in my pocket and squared my shoulders. The day was just beginning to tell its story. I picked a table by the window where the winter light cut clean through the glass. I wanted no shadows between us. The cafeteria buzzed with trays and voices, ordinary noise to hide an extraordinary meeting. The man from Kepler came in quietly, badge clipped to his belt, posture straight but tired. He ordered black coffee and sat across from me, saying, "I'll talk, but no recordings." I slid my notebook toward him so he could see the pen. "Paper's enough," I said. His eyes searched my face like he was deciding whether I was real. "You don't rattle easy," he murmured. "I can respect that." Then he began. He laid out the chain. Callista to Kepler's liaison, Kepler to the hospital's PR. The words they used were tidy. Optics. Stewardship. Containment? He showed me a memo on his phone titled Event Incident. Preferred narrative. The timestamp matched the hour my son was still under oxygen. I copied everything, every name, every phrase. "Who said keep her quiet first?" I asked. He hesitated, then gave me a name and a time. I didn't flinch. I just wrote. Truth doesn't need applause. It needs ink. He talked faster after that, as if years of silence were cracking open. "They had a donor call at 12:17, he said. Phrases like family horseplay, no patient harm. They had NDAs ready, even a gratitude package for the hospital. My stomach turned, but my pen stayed steady. He pulled out a routing slip, meant for the shredder, that said, "Hold doc cam pull until Monday." I took photos front and back. Then, with a breath that shook, he emailed a copy from his personal account to Lamont and Vera. "You can list me as confidential source A," he said. I thanked him the old-fashioned way, with a firm handshake and a look that said, "You did right." I stapled the cafeteria receipt to my notes to lock the time. Lamont texted back. On it. Drafting preservation notice. The Kepler man let me take a screenshot of his phone beside the memo clock, proof no one could deny. A guard passed by. I lifted my water cup and smiled. We had nothing to hide. Arthur Vance said, "Buy quiet." The man whispered before leaving. I wrote it word for word. By 4. Lamont met me in the lobby with 3 envelopes, preservation letters for Kepler, the hospital, and the Lake Authority. We hand-delivered them to the Public Safety Center records desk. "This is a patient family request plus press interest," I said, clear and steady. The clerk stamped them. Lamont cited the statute like a hymn. "We'll preserve through the week," the supervisor said. I asked for it in writing. My phone buzzed. "Vera, got the memo header. Your source is real." I texted back, "Well, so is the lake." Pressure pushed back fast. Callista sent a coffee emoji with, "Let's be reasonable." I replied with the incident number and compliance copied. Arthur's voicemail warned of reputational harm. Lamont labeled it potential intimidation. PR sent a draft family statement. We declined, attaching our preservation receipts as reply. Someone messaged about forgiveness. I typed, "Forgiveness isn't a gag order," and put the phone face down. An unknown caller broke the silence. An older man's voice, thick with lake air. "Saw the clip," he said. "That was no slip. I was fishing by the reeds that night." He mentioned an old tackle bag full of water diaries. I asked him to text his name and a landmark. "Bring someone who writes fast," he said. Lamont logged him as fisherman, Lake Waconia angle. Hope, like evidence. Needs paperwork. Back at the hospital. I asked compliance to append. External narrative control attempted. I filed a visitor restriction on Arthur and Callista until police interviews. Policy spoke louder than outrage. Before heading upstairs, I bought 2 coffees, one for the clerk, one for the guard. Gratitude oils the hinges of justice. When I returned, a manila folder waited on my cafeteria table. No label but a date and Appendix A. Inside, a donor crisis call agenda. One line glared up, talking point, accident language. I closed the folder, felt its corners align, and thought, paper cuts deeper than power ever planned. The cafeteria lights hummed against the quiet, that late evening kind of quiet that comes when folks know something's about to shift. Lamont sat a few tables back, pretending to read the paper, while Vera's text flashed on my screen. Donor crisis call begins at 8:03. I've got a lawful ear in the room. I took out a folded sheet from my purse, phrases I'd written earlier to keep my voice from shaking. Harm, not horseplay. Paper speaks. Patient first. My hand didn't tremble as much as it used to. The call started right on time. Eamon, the insider, sent me the list of participants: Arthur Vance, Callista's liaison, hospital PR, and 2 consultants who probably charged by the minute. The words rolled out like a script: accident narrative, containment strategy, gratitude package. I wrote each phrase down, slow and clean. Then came one that made my jaw set: quiet support for the mother. I circled it twice. Quiet support, I whispered to myself, means hush money with a halo. At 8:29, Vera's follow-up text came through. Publishing summary, policy focus, no gossip. The piece went live. Lamont slid a folder toward me. An ethics complaint template for the State Attorney General's charitable division. We filled it out together. Names neat, dates exact. I walked the envelope to the lobby and handed it to a night courier. Chain of custody receipt stapled right on front. Upstairs, compliance sent a short email. External donor influence noted. PR to refrain from patient narrative. The system had finally said something true. Callista messaged me next. We can fix this together. I typed 2 words, incident number. Then I put my phone face down. Lamont caught my eye and nodded once. Across the hall. Arthur paced like a man walking off bad news. His shoes still didn't squeak. The guilty never do. I checked Deshawn's chart with Nurse Halima. Vitals steady. Concussion care continued. We renewed the visitor restriction on Arthur and Callista. I handed Halima a peppermint. For luck, I said. Luck's earned. She answered. Small mercies keep a hospital alive. By 10 p.m., we were back at the Public Safety Center. The clerk recognized me. Same coffee, same case number. Lamont added Arthur's voicemail and the PR draft to the file. The supervisor stamped our documents and murmured. Detective review opened. Possible aggravated assault. I didn't cheer. Justice isn't a drumbeat. It's the sound of a form getting stamped at the right hour. Near midnight, an officer brought temporary no-contact orders for Arthur and Callista. I signed them, thanked him, and told Lamont. It's starting to count. Vera texted again. AG inquiry into donor ethics. Early but moving. I sent back a single line, roads open. Just before dawn. Lamont and I drove out to Lake Waconia. The fisherman was waiting by the picnic table, his coat smelling of bait and cold air. He pulled a worn spiral notebook from his tackle bag, filled with water temps and wind notes. That edge eats shoes, he said, pointing to the dock. Saw it on the clip. Same pause before the drop. He signed Lamont's statement form without fuss. Then he handed over a photograph from last summer. Same spot, same angle. Some things need daylight, he told me. By sunrise. Vera's next story broke. Ethics inquiry, preservation orders, internal memos confirmed. The noise online turned to witness names and policy citations. The truth had weight now, not volume. Back at the hospital, Deshawn's hand twitched in mine, reflex or recognition. It didn't matter. I whispered, You're doing your part, baby. Callista posted love wins with a filtered sunset. I didn't answer. Eamon texted, I've got counsel. I replied, good. Stay documented. I stacked the fisherman's signed page behind my other receipts and smoothed the corners. Paper doesn't lie when handled right. Lamont called it a spine of facts. I called it proof. My boy mattered. At 9:31, a knock came at the consult room door. A detective and a county attorney stood there, folders thin but important. Ms. Ellington, the detective said, we'd like your statement before 10. I slid my notebook across the table, looked him in the eye, and said, let's begin where the lake started talking. I woke before sunrise, brewed my coffee black, and laid out my church suit. Not for them, for me. The fabric smelled faintly of cedar and starch, steadiness in a world that still tilted. Lamont texted, "We argue facts, not volume." I smiled at that, folded my notebook into my purse, and stepped out into the cool morning. Outside the courthouse, Pastor Ruth led a quiet prayer circle. No slogans, no sign, just hands, joined and steady. When she caught my eye, she gave a nod that said, "You've done your part." Inside, the air buzzed with that small-town big case hum, metal detectors, reporters corralled, courthouse coffee already burnt. A volunteer from Victim Services offered me a chair. I declined politely. I wasn't tired, just deliberate. The clerk called the case, and the county attorney summarized what had become a paper mountain: doc footage, hospital affidavits, chain of custody logs. The judge read out the preliminary charges: assault causing great bodily harm, reckless endangerment. Arthur stared straight ahead, his jaw tight. Callista glanced once toward the press bench, then down. The judge's next words carved clean: no contact order formalized, firearm surrender, travel restriction, passport held. The courtroom murmured, but I kept my hands folded, pen between my fingers. Lamont whispered, "Steady, Marva." Papers doing the shouting. Defense muttered horseplay and accident. But the judge interrupted, reminding them the case would proceed on evidence. When the gavel struck, I didn't feel triumph, just the slow unwind of something heavy finally setting down. Outside, a reporter shouted my name. I answered once, softly. We let the paper talk. By noon, the second shoe dropped. Vera forwarded a letter from the Attorney General's office. Board suspension pending audit. Donor accounts frozen. Eamon's counsel confirmed an authenticated line from the crisis call. Contain accident narrative, minimize culpability. The courtroom clerk stamped it as Exhibit 12. The defense lawyer's shoulders slumped like a man watching his own rope tighten. Lamont leaned over and whispered, "That one sentence just buried their goodwill." I nodded. Sometimes truth didn't need an argument. Just daylight. After court, I walked back through hospital corridors that now felt lighter. Nurse Halima waved me over. "He's stable," she said. "Focus on you today." I left her a handwritten note. "Thank you for guarding my boy. No cookies allowed, but gratitude doesn't need frosting." At discharge planning, they talked about neuro check-ins, sleep hygiene, home safety inspections. I listened, signed where needed, initialed every line. Paper again. Our quiet armor. Later that afternoon, I drove to Lake Waconia with Lamont. The fisherman was waiting, wind tugging at his hat brim. I dropped a single white stone into the shallows, a marker, not a monument. "You don't keep our names," I told the lake. The ripples spread thin and vanished. Lamont took a photo for scale, then closed his notebook. "That's the end of chain of custody," he said. "For the case," I replied. "Not the story." By evening, I sat on my porch, the same wood that had held my son's laughter years ago. I signed the trust papers for the Deshawn Ellington Swim Safety Fund, a small start, but honest. We don't need their money, I told my sister as she arrived with cornbread. "Just enough to keep kids from sinking." She laughed through tears. "That's plenty, sis." Pastor Ruth stopped by. No sermon, just 2 hands over mine for 10 seconds of silence. Vera texted, "First sign-ups for lessons filled in hours." I typed back, "Good." Water's meant for learning, not loss. Lamont confirmed the detective's calendar for next week. Everything in order. Before bed, I opened my notebook and wrote one final line. Today we took our name back. The porch light flickered as if nodding in agreement. I pulled the chain, leaving the night where it belonged. Outside, quiet, harmless. When the hearing comes, I said to no one in particular, I won't bring anger, I'll bring receipts, and a bus schedule for anyone still trying to ride our story for free. As the porch light flickered behind me, a new message buzzed on my phone. Unknown number again. Just one line. The fund isn't yours to run. Miss Ellington, you've made powerful people nervous. I stared at it, heart steady. The lake was quiet, but the storm clearly wasn't done. Who was still pulling strings?